first fruits to the Lord. We'll stop right there. These are the spring holy days. And on this one, this is called the Mystery Days of Zion. I'm going to focus for today on the spring holy days. Now, we're going to see something now, one of the strangest occurrences in history that concerns the Jewish people, the Bible, the precepts of God, but concerns every believer. It's such a strange thing carried out by an entire nation, people, the Jewish people, yet almost no one among the Jewish people or the rabbis has made a note of how strange this is. And the strangeness of it are revelations that have to do with your life and the age. First holy day of spring, the Jewish people celebrate Pesach or Passover, their redemption. Lambs brought to the temple in Jerusalem, seders, Passover seders, as they celebrate the redemption from Egypt, partaking of the lamb, all about the lamb. The word Passover means literally the lamb. Really, it's the lamb of Passover. And then it says, that you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread, matzah throughout the time, and then you have the day called First Fruits. And that is, during Passover, they go out to their fields. They go out to the beginning of the harvest. The harvest has not started yet. It's been winter. Now only during Passover can the harvest of spring begin, the whole season of harvest. They go out. They take the first omer or the first sheaf to the Lord. They wave it before the Lord in a ceremony. And every day from that time on, it's called the counting of the omers. The counting, every day they count another one from the field. The days of the omer, they count 7 sevens or 7 weeks of this counting. And then it leads to the 49th day, leads to the 50th day, which is another celebration, the celebration of the beginning of the summer harvest or late spring summer harvest in Jerusalem. And it is called Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. The rabbinic writings say the villagers would assemble in the large town there with their ripe fruits, bringing their first ripe fruits of the new harvest to the temple, where they'd be welcomed by singing. The Levites would be singing as they came in. In the synagogues, they read the book of Ruth during Shavuot, or in Greek, Pentecost. They read the book of Ruth. The book of Ruth takes place at harvest time, around this time. And Ruth is the ancestor of King David, who by their tradition died on Shavuot. It is customary to adorn the synagogue with plants, flowers, and because of Shavuot, it is the feast of the summer harvest. Now, this was another pilgrim feast. During Passover, they all went up to Jerusalem to celebrate by the temple. And during Shavuot, second Pentecost, the second great pilgrim feast, they all go up to Jerusalem. But now, here's the catch. In 70 AD, the temple of Jerusalem is destroyed. The Jewish people are scattered throughout the earth. There is no more temple, no more priesthood, no more lambs, no more harvest of barley, no more harvest of wheat, no more fields bearing the harvest of Israel, no more Jerusalem, no more going up to Jerusalem to celebrate. But the strange thing is this. There's no way to celebrate these things the way God said. And the strange thing happened, unprecedented in history. The children of Israel did something that had never been done before. They began to celebrate that which they didn't have to celebrate. They began to celebrate that which didn't exist. We've known of it so long we don't think about it. Let's start with Passover. No temple now, no Jerusalem, no way to go up to Jerusalem, no way to bring the Passover lambs, no way to sacrifice the lambs, and yet the Jewish people still celebrate Passover with no Passover lamb. Passover means the Passover lamb. When Paul in 2 Corinthians says, let us celebrate for Messiah our Passover, he didn't just say Passover, you could say Passover lamb, but Passover is what it says. The lamb is Passover, so now you've got a Passover with no Passover. The Seder means the meal or the order of the meal of the lamb. That's what it's talking about. So they celebrate it with no lamb. They celebrate as if they were in Jerusalem, but there's no Jerusalem to be in for them. They give thanks to God bringing them out of Egypt into the promised land, but they're not in the promised land. Passover without Passover. Then you have an unleavened bread. Then you have the first fruit feast, the day of first fruits, Yom Reshit or Yom Bikorim. The next mystery is that they would go out in the fields and take in that first fruit and wave the barley to the Lord, their first fruit to God. But now the Romans have destroyed the land, driven the people out. There's no more barley harvest. There's no more fields bearing the fruits of Israel. There's no more harvest, period. And yet the strange thing is, even though there's no land for them, no harvest for them, no first fruit for them, the Jewish people continue to celebrate a harvest that doesn't exist. They celebrate the first fruits, lifting the Lord with no first fruits to lift to God. The days are then called the counting of the Omars, counting the Omars, the barley in between Passover and Pentecost. And so they continue to celebrate the counting of the Omars with no Omars to count. They're counting something that doesn't exist. Now, you've heard of counting your eggs before they hatch, but there's no eggs. I mean, they're not going to hatch. At least then, there's no barley. How strange this is. And yet nobody stops to say, this is crazy. And then comes the next holy day of spring, the feast of Shavuot, Pentecost. Again, totally about the harvest. That happens right in the midst of the harvest. It's the beginning of the great summer harvest. All that, the great inauguration of the harvest, waving the loaves, waving before the Lord. Only problem, there's no spring harvest. There's no summer harvest. There's no Jerusalem again. And yet the Jewish people in all the nations continue to celebrate their summer harvest with no summer harvest. It doesn't exist. They continue to say the blessings of thanks over the harvest that is not there. As far as they were concerned, God never revoked the command, and there's a point to that. God said celebrate in the land, though. Never gave any provisional plan for a time when they wouldn't have a land to celebrate or a harvest to celebrate. He never gave that really when they be scattered to the ends of the earth. He just said celebrate. Never said you have to have a land to celebrate, but of course you do on one hand. Little did the Jewish people know that they'd be without a land for 2,000 years, but still a command to celebrate a harvest in a land they don't have. Amazing thing in history, a strange phenomenon. If you had Jewish friends growing up,